building tools. So once you have your shape here, you have your outline, right? I've got all my anchor points and everything in here. I can add and subtract to this if I want to in a more organic sort of a way. All right, so one way to add and subtract to it is using the blob brush. So here, there's a couple of different tools. There's pencil tool, paintbrush tool. That we're just going to focus on the blob brush right now. All right, with the blob brush, if I double click on it, it gives me the properties of the blob brush here. So I can adjust the roundness of my blob brush like so. I can adjust, depending on the shape of my blob brush, I can do the angle of my blob brush here, and you can see a little preview right here. And then I can also adjust the size of my blob brush here, just like this. So I'm just going to use a round blob brush, 180, doesn't really matter here. I'm going to go 0, like so. And then I'm going to make it relatively small, just like so. And I'm going to say OK. So here's my blob brush right here. Now you can also, if I use the caps lock on my keyboard, it gets rid of that little paintbrushy icon, which is sort of silly. So I'm going to use this as sort of like an X. Now the bracket keys next to the letter P, if I left bracket, it makes it smaller. If I right bracket, it makes it larger, right? And then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint, right? So I can paint out sort of like this here on the edge. If I want to make this kind of fuzzy, like that. All right, and then if I let go, this suddenly becomes part of my shape, right? And you can see all those anchor points all along the outside edge there, which is pretty cool, right? And I can go back to my blob brush and I can add some more on this side here. So like if you wanted to make, these are gonna be terrible, but if I want to make wings on here or something like that, like you could paint some sort of something extra up here, just like that. All right, and that becomes part of your design. And again, everything that's painted here, we just want to paint that over, becomes part of your shape. And I can see inside here I have a little problem in here, so I'm just going to go blob brush again. I'm going to paint over that. And then suddenly it brings it. So if you ever see any like extra anchor points inside of your shape, that just means that you missed a little spot there so that it needs to be sort of painted. But now let's say you wanted an empty spot in here, right? So now I'm going to use my eraser tool, which is this one right here, right? So I'm going to use that eraser tool. And again, same rules apply. Left bracket, right bracket makes your eraser larger or smaller. Double clicking on the eraser gives you the options here if you want to set them by hand. And I'm just going to erase. Right? And it's a little crude, and it's rounded, right? You can't get a squared edge. We'll talk about squared edges later. But there you go. So now I have this shape. It has an empty spot in it. It's not a white piece that's on top of it, but it's actually an empty spot inside that black like that. One other tool you can use, which is sort of handy, is if you hold down on the eraser tool, is this knife tool. And what the knife tool does is I can just cut out a section like this. I can circle that little piece here, and it just sliced these two sections apart. So if I use my direct selection and I click off the shape and I just click on this one piece, see the way they're two separate pieces now? I can delete, and I can delete that out of there. So again, I'm going to use a knife. I'm going to cut another, I'm going to just make a little circle here, cut these two pieces out of here. Again, I'm going to click right on here, and I'm going to say delete. I'm going to click right here, and I'm going to say delete. So that's another way that you can also, sort of handcraft things as you're putting your piece together.